get some.
Welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are taking a look at Duke Nukem Time to Kill. This is actually a sequel to Duke Nukem 3D or Duke Nukem Total Meltdown, the FPS game that was released in 1996 and early 1997 for the PlayStation. Now this game here is actually, even though it's a sequel, but it's also a PlayStation exclusive game.
Looks like it's
because this game never was released on any other format, and it's unique to pretty much the concept, because when you actually see it and you play it, it instantly reminds you of playing Tomb Raider. If you remember playing Tomb Raider games with Lara Croft, it plays almost identical to that, where you're running around levels trying to obviously take out as many enemies as you can, but you're trying to get from different points from point A to point B, but you're solving puzzles, collecting likes of key cards, keys and so forth, so that you can actually get from one place to another. And then obviously then you can look around the levels and try to find hidden areas and secrets and so forth, so that you can find and unlock other items, weapons and just other collectibles throughout your playthroughs. So essentially this kind of carries on the theme of the Duke Nukem franchise, even though it is a totally different perspective compared to the first game, which was a first person shooter, which in my opinion, and it still is considered one of the best all time first person shooters ever made. Even though this is very different, but it still continues that adult themed humour. As you can clearly see here, you're going into literally like a strip club or a dance club, so it's definitely kind of got that kind of adult theme, and it still has the same type of humour and that from the original kind of game as well, with all new kind of one-liners and innuendos and gags and stuff like that. So it's actually a tough game to play.
Skanky outfit.
In terms of the controls, because third-person games back in those days they were quite fiddly in terms of the controlling and the game mechanics and so forth. But it is actually a very funny game. It's difficult now, I will admit, and I remember actually playing it for the first time, and it kind of did throw me off when I first seen it. It did look really good, but I was like, right, this is actually very different from what I'm used to, because I played Duke Nukem 3D for a long time and I really enjoyed that game. So to play this here, even though you were playing as the same character, but it was a completely different game style, and the Duke Nukem franchise has been known for that throughout the years, for trying different genres in terms of how each game operates. So obviously there was a lot of experimentation phases going through with this series of games. Now some really good, some probably not as good as others, but they all had something unique and they all offered their own individual and unique experience, and they were fun games. Depends on like how you see it as well, but if you're into these type of games and if you like the Duke Nukem franchise itself, it's definitely one to play for sure. Now I know around the same time when this was released, the N64 also got its own version, was it Duke Nukem 0 Hour. It had a similar type of concept, but again it was a different game in its own right. It had its own unique levels and characteristics and mechanics and so forth as well. It was unique to that console too. So the PlayStation obviously got this here. But I have to admit now, I liked the design, I liked the level design in this game, even though it was dark and it was gritty. It definitely had a lot of unique characteristics to it as well. The only thing was, like saying, as you can see here, the controls were very fiddly, because even if you were doing jumps and so forth, you had to time everything, and that was pretty much the premise of the game as well, along with trying to solve puzzles and get from one place to the next, literally without getting wiped out along the way as well. So like I said, it was a difficult game, but it was a fun game. So I remember I definitely played this for a good while. The one thing I will note in this, I remember actually playing this with my friends, because it was like a two-player mode where you could actually play like a one-on-one deathmatch, and the multiplayer levels in this were actually really good. There was loads of like hidden areas, and you could get like rocket launchers, and you could go absolutely crazy with the multiplayer in this here if you're playing against your mates. Even though you were playing only one-on-one, but it was actually a good laugh. You definitely have a bit of fun with this game, playing the multiplayer of it. Myself and my mates actually did enjoy that side of it as well. So that was definitely one of the cool features of it. Because like even back with the original title, you could play multiplayer on it, but you needed to use the old-fashioned like link mechanic where you had to link two consoles together, but you needed to have two separate TVs, and that was just a faff trying to set up. So at least with this here, you could play it on the one TV, but you were playing again split screen, so it was more ideal and it was just easier to use pretty much back in those days. But again, it was a fun game. There was a lot of levels. You travel through time. Like you start off here in the normal modern world, but then you actually travelled through time then to different kind of eras, like the Wild West, medieval times, and so forth. All with your own kind of tasks in each in order to complete. But the idea of each level was pretty much the same. Just run around, find as much stuff as you could find, and just shoot the crap out of anything that moved pretty much. But it's actually a really fun game. I definitely enjoyed it now. I will admit, compared to Duke Nukem 3D, even though it was a totally different style of game, that was my favourite of the Duke Nukem games by far. But this was as enjoyable in its own right as well. And for a third-person action game, maybe not the best on the PlayStation itself, but it was a very fun game. And if you have actually played this here at all, or if you haven't, I definitely recommend that you check it out if you are a fan of these type of games, especially in the PlayStation back in those days. So as you can see here, you have to like use key cards and that to unlock different areas, and you obviously have to flick switches and so forth to trigger something else to actually happen so that you could proceed to the next area. And you were like say running through tunnels, and there was loads of different kind of areas within each level that you could actually find, like loads of hidden like caves and like sewers in this case, subways. There was a lot of like unique environments to the game, which kind of added to the whole concept of it as well, and really added a whole lot to the atmosphere of the game. But again, even though it was kind of a dark theme, it wasn't a horror game. It was just an out-and-out action game with just a lot of fun elements. So it was actually a really good game. Definitely worth a good playthrough for sure. And the levels were actually quite long, and they did offer and present a unique challenge. Sometimes when you were actually trying to do certain tasks, it wouldn't always be evident straight away of figuring out exactly what you needed to do, but after a few playthroughs or a little while, you'd be able to figure out what you had to do next. So you could spend a little bit of a while on certain levels in order to figure out what to do next. But again, that just added to the whole fun of the game in general, like, so it's definitely worth enjoying for the most part. And again, you could choose different difficulty levels in the game as well, and depending on the difficulty level will obviously depend on how skilled you are as well. So the harder it was, pretty much you wouldn't last too long, you know yourself. But again, there was enough there to cater for what people actually wanted for the game as well, like, so definitely a worthwhile title to play.
Yippee-ki-yay. Wonder what makes this thing tick.
So what are your thoughts on Duke Nukem Time to Kill? Did you play it back in the day when it was released on the PlayStation? And what are your experiences of it, or have you played it at all? If so, let me know down in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon to be updated whenever I release a future video, as I am going to be experiencing other games I haven't played on the PlayStation, and I'm going to be revisiting old classic games like this here and sharing my thoughts and my memories with you all. So as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and make sure to keep those gaming memories alive.